Hello, everybody. My name is Joanna Linde, and I am the face-to-face manager at the festival. Welcome to this conversation with Marion Hill, the writer and director of Ma Belle My Beauty. The film is the first feature film of Marion Hill and is selected for the American Independent section at the festival and is nominated for the Audience Award. Thank you so much for joining us, Marion. We are so happy to have you with us.
Hey, Joanne, thank you so much for having me. I'm calling from New Orleans. I wish I was there with you, but this is great also. So
yes,
thanks for having
me. We of course also wished you could have been here. But let's get started. So, like I said, this is your first feature film, and it's also a story that we don't see that often, portrayals of queer women shown through a female lens. Why did you decide to tell this story as your first feature?
I have always loved love stories, whether it was, romantic Jane Austen novels when I was growing up to, the Casablancas of Hollywood when I was a teenager, and just really that's what drew me to cinema. But as I grew older, I knew and became an artist and a storyteller. I knew that I had never really seen the type of love story that I wanted to see, that felt just honest to my experiences and the types of people that I, have loved or been around. And I knew I wanted it to set it in, a beautiful place and just tell a story that was as complicated as love actually is. So yeah, that was what it was, just wanting a love story that felt true to me.
Yeah. And you talked a little bit that the film is about a complicated love, and relationships are shown in a very open and intimate way. But what also stands out is that the conflict is very internal. There isn't really an external force standing in their way except for each other. How did you go about creating this story?
Yeah, that was something very important to me that I felt growing up watching queer love stories between women. There was always something, usually a man or some kind of societal expectation standing in between their love, and it just felt so easy. And while I didn't obviously get rid of the man entirely, I still have, a husband in my story. I wanted to make sure that he wasn't the determinant of whether or not these women would be together, and that it was really their choice, and they had to work through their own issues with themselves and with each other. And yeah, after kind of deciding that would be the approach, I wanted to use, I kind of stumbled into using backstory as a huge character in terms of, what the conflict actually is in their relationship is stuff that has happened in the past. And so being able to bring layers from the past into their current dynamic felt like a big challenge and an exciting challenge, and felt very honest to queer relationships.
Yeah, definitely. The film is also pretty much centered around this house as the main location. Was that helpful in creating the story, or did it present challenges in finding the right way to tell the story?
That's a really good question. It was both. It was exciting because, I love films that take place basically in one location, where you can really, what it meant was it was really me and the actors had so much responsibility to create tension and to create an arc for what was going on, but all within the same space. Nothing was action driven. It was all kind of driven by what's going on in this house in between them. And for me, that's what gets me really excited as a director and about working with actors. It's like a little incubator. That said, of course, it was also easy because I knew that house very well. And so for me, I was able to kind of take the different elements of the house that I knew, even everything from the room to the time of day, and work it into the story, kind of hand in hand rather than writing it first and then looking for it. And so by the time we got there, I really knew exactly what the plan was, more or less. And I loved working that way. The challenge, of course, was keeping things interesting, keeping momentum in the story when, we're not really leaving the house. And we really only left the house twice. And yeah, I think it was thinking of the different parts of the house as different characters, and different moods. Kind of it was a fun challenge.
Yeah. It's interesting that you said that the house kind of became like a character, because I also kind of thought that the location kind of mirrors Birdie in a way, that it's like very isolated. It's like it's alone out in the countryside. Was this like a conscious decision, or was it something that kind of happened as you went along?
Yeah, I think the conscious decision for me was the fact that something that is outwardly very beautiful and very peaceful, seems idyllic, actually has, a lot of pain and suffering and problems and darkness, that you don't kind of see until you step into the house and spend time in the house, and of course, like the first thing that we see is the pool is leaking, right? So it's there's this beauty to the house that's broken, and that was the intentional part. And I think once we really delved into the story, and like the script developed more, it became, I'd love to hear more of how the house specifically mirrored Birdie for you. But yeah, I think that ended up being a very nice mirror.
Yeah, I just think for me it was just this, because I kind of saw her as like, she becomes this a little bit isolated when she moves to France, and she's in this new, she doesn't like really speak the language. She stopped doing kind of what she loved in singing, and it's like also what you said with the pool, like it's just a beautiful house, but something's just not right. And that's kind of where I saw Birdie at the beginning of the film, that was kind of, so it was interesting to hear if that was like an intentional thing or if it just kind of happened.
Yeah, no, it was definitely a bit of both again.
Yeah.
I think I was interested in, I think I could have pushed it even further, because a lot of something that I find funny is the way Americans think of France is, it's like this paradise place, which yes, it is. France sure is paradise. But it's also just a place where, just like anywhere else. And I think, Americans are still very much walking away from the film like, well, I want to go to France. I want to go to France. I think I didn't quite put enough of the other side of, the truth behind any place that has its own problems, or that has its own realities. Maybe next time.
Maybe next time. How come that it ended up being the south of France? Is there like a personal connection, or what was the reason for it being set in France?
Yeah, well, my maternal family is all French. Well, they're immigrants from Vietnam in France. So I spent a lot of time in France growing up, in the South with family, and actually in that village itself. So it being the first feature, when you're making a first feature, you really don't have many resources. So going somewhere where I knew the community, knew the people wanted to help me, where I knew I could bring everyone safely, because, we don't have a huge like security budget or anything like
Yeah.
that, so I needed to take everyone somewhere that I knew well, and that was the place for me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's also a pretty small cast. It's not a lot of different characters. And as I understand it, for most of them, it's also their first feature project. What was the casting process like, and were the actors involved in creating their characters, or like pitching in for story ideas, or?
Totally. Yeah, really good question. They definitely were involved. I didn't really think of it so much as casting as I did looking for collaborators. Like, I started looking for the actors I wanted to work with and who wanted to work with me when I was really at the, only had 30 or so pages of the script. And I wanted the actors that I chose to work with to be able to inform what was going to happen in the story, especially because, like we said earlier, it all takes place in one house. So it's not plot oriented, it's character driven, right? And I wanted them to really bring parts of themselves to their characters, and to just kind of know what they're like as people as I kept developing, what was going on between them. So I met both Idella and Hannah are locals. They actually both live 5 minutes away from me here in New Orleans. And they were both, actors, but had not done a feature film yet. And I first approached Idella, and she was, excited about the idea, and we talked a lot. We kind of went on dates for a while, where we just shared a lot of things. And I was writing as I was getting to know her and kind of showing her the pages, and she was responding with her feedback and her ideas, and what felt true and what didn't. And then we did have a few different people come and read with Idella, just to kind of make sure that the connection was there. And Hannah and Idella had an immediate connection. So yeah, and then the three of us kind of just spent a lot of time together after that, and we even went on a little retreat together and worked on the backstory, and worked on what their relationship would have been like before the movie starts. And and then the other two each have their own story, but Simone I met at a film festival in Chicago in 2016, and we stayed friends for we just kind of were talking all these years, and I just wrote this part for her. And then Lucien I found through an acting coach in London.
Oh wow.
So it was kind of
a big match of people.
Yeah, like bringing a little family together. For me, it was everyone who worked on this film was someone that I knew already, other than Lucien, really.
Yeah.
And that was important to me in terms of, because it was so intimate, that I want the perfect energy among everyone.
Yeah. How did you work on building like the trust and the connection between the actors? Did it come kind of natural? I'm thinking like intimate scenes, and they had to do a lot of work together. That's because it's that type of story.
Right. Yeah. I think, like I said, me and Hannah and Idella spent a lot of time together before shooting, like at least 6 months. I think we were meeting regularly, and I was mainly talking to each of them, and then eventually the three of us got together several times. And I think because we were all traveling to France, none of us were local, and we all lived in this place together for a month. And everyone was out of their comfort zone. You know, I think there was this very natural kind of bonding that was happening off screen. We were living together, you know, we're eating together, washing dishes together, doing laundry together, all the normal stuff. And I think that just really affirmed everyone's sense of family with each other, and it really truly was. And I think once, you know, so when we were shooting, it was just like we were working and then waiting for when we could wrap and go and have playtime. Just hang out.
Yeah. The music also plays a big part in the film, both in like character development of Birdie, but I also understand that the music was created by musicians like locally for you in New Orleans. Could you maybe tell us a little bit about that?
Definitely. Mahmoud Choki is my friend and composer, guitar master, originally from Morocco. He's been in New Orleans for a few years now. And we started working together also while I was writing the script. He was really helping me kind of be able to hear what the movie was going to sound like, which was, you know, developing my style too. So he was really crucial in developing that early on. And then we recorded some of the music before filming, and most of it during COVID here in New Orleans. And the great thing about New Orleans is it's obviously a city known for music, full of music and musicians, but specifically musicians who are gigging, so are not necessarily, you know, writing their own music and performing with their band all the time. It's like they get together, they play with different people every night, you know, and they just kind of show up and play. And that was the approach that we took to the score as well. Like Mahmoud had, you know, the melodies written out, and we had everything figured out. But once the musicians came into the studio, they were really bringing their own thing to the music, and that it felt like a reflection of, you know, what the actors were doing when they were coming and bringing their own style and character to the work. And it was really cool. And so because it was COVID, the musicians were unfortunately very available. So we had like 25 local musicians come into the studio and do different songs. And you can actually listen to the soundtrack on Spotify now and iTunes. Wow. You can buy it on iTunes and stuff.
That's amazing, because it's a beautiful soundtrack and a beautiful score.
Thanks. Yeah, we had a lot of fun with that.
And I like, sometimes they say in film school that a film is written kind of 3 times, like first by the writer, then by the director while filming, and then lastly by the editor. And you've kind of worn all these 3 hats for this project, as you are also the editor. Do you think that that's true? And did you feel that the story changed throughout these 3 different phases?
You have such good questions. Are you are you a filmmaker or a film?
I studied filmmaking. Yes,
okay.
I did. Yeah. So, yeah, I guess you can say that a little bit.
Yeah. I would also add that you rewrite the film when you're doing sound.
Yeah.
That was actually the most fun. I love sound design because we were, there's this one scene that I love. So now I'm talking about sound design, but
no, that's fine.
When the 2 actresses hug in the hallway for the first time in this very intimate hug. And, you know, before it wasn't really clear, or I hadn't really thought about where Fred was at that time. Like, was he already in bed? Was he still outside? And in adding the audio of him doing dishes, I don't know, but this isn't the most exciting example, but I wish I could show, that's something I want to show students, like the effect that it has to just kind of sonically put place a character somewhere that you hadn't really thought of before, but what it does to the power of what's going on. Yes, there are several instances of that where we were kind of adding a lot of layers. But the story definitely changed from script to the final. And I mean, the performances were so subtle that or like what was going on in the arc of the story was so subtle that I really just kind of, the actors were kind of giving a lot of things that were different from how, in a good way, that I had written them, and figuring out, how to still get to the place I wanted to go, which types of performances I wanted to take to accomplish the same thing. That was a big fun challenge, and yeah, I think, but at the same time, I think, because I was doing all those roles, I was extremely intentional. I did know exactly what I wanted, which allowed us to execute things efficiently when we were shooting. Like, I didn't really shoot tons of coverage, like if anything, I was doing coverage for performance, having them play 3 different levels, just so that when I was editing, I would have, performance options. But other than that, it was very much editing pretty much exactly what I had pictured going into it.
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah. So lastly, like, are you working on something new, a new project that might be coming soon?
Not soon. Yeah, I'm slowly writing a feature, but I'm definitely realizing I want to take some time, and not rush into my next story. But in the meantime, I'm staying busy with all kinds of fun local projects. I really love to kind of just always be shooting something at home, so that kind of leads me all kinds of places. And yeah, but there will be another movie eventually.
That's great. Good to hear.
Yeah.
So thank you so much for joining us today. And we're so happy to be screening your film at the festival. And we wish you the best of luck on any upcoming projects. And hopefully we get to see you in Stockholm soon.
Yes. Thank you very much. It was really nice talking to you. And I'm super happy to be here in Stockholm. Thank you.